What's up, guys? Barry Game here, back with some more Idle Heroes news for August 8th, 2023. Now, today we have the skill cards for the brand new hero, Betty, and I'll be honest, on first read on them, it is kind of a confusing hero. Not exactly the skill set you would expect for a shadow hero, but the skills do feel pretty accurate for a mage hero. So this one's going to be really interesting. I don't know at first glance if this hero is going to be one of those candidates for like first E5 heroes, because a lot of her kit is kind of around crowd control. And again, the confusing part is I'm going to spoil it right now. It's twining. Yeah, shadow hero that has twine. Not sure how I feel about that, but let's take a look at her skill set. Let's see what she's like. And of course, we will be building her on the Thursday night live stream. So hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so here is Betty's skill card. Of course, we've already seen all the images for her. She's a shadow, she's a mage. Let's take a look at her first main ability here, her active. Creepy Lunatic. Active skill deals attack damage to backline enemies. So that's good because that's, I guess it depends on the game mode. It's like 2 to 4 different enemies in the back row at any one time. If the target's HP is no less than a certain percentage, she'll additionally bleed the target, which that kind of, it fits her aesthetic, dealing attack damage over several rounds. But if the target's HP is more than a certain percentage, she'll deal extra damage with a chance to twine the target for several rounds. Now that's interesting because it's like, it really depends on what this HP percentage is. My guess is it's like, if the target's HP is 50% or less, you're going to bleed them. If the target's HP is 50% or more, they're going to deal attack damage and have a chance to twine them. That way, the higher like HP heroes are going to get CC'd, whereas the lower ones are going to have a bleed on them with the potential to finish them off. Afterward, deals damage to all twined targets. The damage dealt is equal to a certain percentage of their max HP, probably capping at like 1,000 or 1,500 of her attack, like most abilities do. And then this is twine, just the normal twine control effect. Heroes being twined are unable to release active skills, basic attacks, extra attacks, or counter attacks. I really wonder if that prevents, like, I highly doubt it prevents Holmes Young from using his attack. There's so many heroes that, like, that sentence right there doesn't really apply to. We'll have to see how it works out. So just offer a main active ability. It's really going to come down to how much damage this does, and it doesn't seem like there's any type of heal built into it or anything like that, so we'll have to see how the active skill actually works out. Now, the passives are really good. Invisible Outbreak is really awesome. Increases self-speed, attack, crit damage, and damage reduction. That's just a really awesome kit to have for like default stats, which is really, really good. Her Painful Whip passive changes her basic attack to deals attack damage to 2 random enemies, which I don't like the random part of it, but it's better than hitting maybe just like front row enemies, with a chance to twine the target for several rounds. Afterward, there's a chance to twine several enemies that are not twined for several rounds. So that part's kind of good. It really depends on, like, I guess what the percentage chance of twining these heroes are, because if it's kind of higher, this is good. One thing to note is this hero does seem to be like almost like a counter to Eloise, but I guess we'll have to see because her active ability only has back row. Eloise is usually a front row hero. We'll have to see. And then last passive skill. This one's interesting. When self takes active skills or basic attacks, the attacker will take a certain percentage of attack damage with a chance to be twined for several rounds. This effect can be triggered up to several times a round. At the end of each round, reduces the energy of twined heroes. For every twined target, increases self-attack. So again, there's a lot of synergy with twining here. Sadly, though, if we're talking about like Shadow Sealand, there's really no synergy with any other hero in the faction per se. But this one is interesting. The big question I have is, again, the percentage here, because the attacker will take a certain percentage of attack, even if it's just a little bit. It's basically a counterattack, it sounds like, but it doesn't specifically say counterattack, so it might be like a reflect. The big thing that'll be able to tell if it's a counterattack or it's a just passive damage reflection type ability, not even reflect, but like a damage, like thorns type ability, is if she can still proc this damage when she's CC'd, because of course Sealands have CC. So that's interesting because that's just taking from active or basic skills from the boss. That could potentially be good. Chance to twine them for several rounds. This effect can be triggered up to several times each round. Again, if this is only like 2 or 3 times per round, it's not going to be as good. If it's just saying, you know, it says specifically this effect can be triggered up to several times. I don't know if that just means more than once or like a specific limit of like it can only happen 2 or 3 times per round, because that's kind of important to note. And then, of course, the energy reduction is good. The only downside of this hero is Twine doesn't work on the big boss in a lot of game modes, especially Sealand, so I don't know if it's going to be that viable. It is a way for her to boost her attack up. It is a nice way to have energy drain on the enemy. I don't know. Maybe it's time for some PvP. Man, if this hero came out back when Oberon was the thing, probably would have been pretty good, to be honest. The only big downside I see immediately with this hero is that there are absolutely no self-sustain in her toolkit, and typically the best heroes in the game are Eloise, Inosuke, Holmes Young, those type heroes. Most of them have a heal built into them. However, if she does pump out a lot of CC, I could see her even being decent early game in things like Aspen Dungeon. Probably not the best boss damage dealer, but again, I really like the fact that she already has built-in damage reduction. That makes her much more viable, I think, than most heroes. And then we can also take a look and see what her home looks like and who her tenants are. Overall, these are not the worst tenants to have necessarily. Definitely not as good as someone like, you know, Eloise, because Eloise has some really good ones, but has very similar ones with Ithaca, on Kirimaru. Eos isn't that bad to build because Eos will get you light Sealand done. You can either go for Annabelle for more support in that Sealand, or you could go for something like Holmes Young, which again can get Fortress Sealand done very, very easy. It's interesting because Holmes Young was already a really good first E5 hero to go for, and if you build them as a second one, the duo of them might not be that bad. So if he wasn't in this first slot, I would have said definitely a big no for this hero as first E5, but we're gonna have to see how she actually performs because, well, I mean, she does build some really good supporters. Like, you're probably going to want to Ithaca on your account early game anyway for things like Broken Spaces, especially since it sounds like we're going to have Broken Spaces 10 and 11 coming out. And her skill set is interesting. It just depends on what type of damage she can pump out. She has some synergy with building Wolf as the first monster for your account too, which isn't necessarily amazing, but it's good to have an offensive one. Gives you some armor break and stuff like that. So let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. I'm not really sold. It's a confusing hero. The Twine really threw me for a loop. I thought we were going to see more bleed effects and things like that, but we'll have to see. Hopefully you guys enjoy this one. Hit that subscribe one. See you guys next time.